Welcome to a Fuller Life podcast where we discuss longevity strategies, disease prevention, and improving quality of life. We explore the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social aspects of having the life you want. Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Scott Fuller. The theme today is stress reduction, and my plan and setup for you is to give you a variety of techniques and tactics, some references, people, books, websites, programs that you can look into yourself if you want to do even a deeper dive when it comes to reducing stress in your life. Now, where does this fall in the whole context of having a fuller life, having fuller health, fuller wellness in your life? Well, I've talked a lot about brain health, improving your brain health, preserving brain health as you go through your life to try to prevent age-related cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, other forms of dementia, and so forth, okay? So I've created eight buckets of things in our lives that we can do to try to improve our overall general physical health of our organ systems and so forth, but of course, specifically our brain. And you've heard these before. These are the eight things. Number one is exercise, of course. Number two, nutrition, of course. They'll probably always be the top two. Number three and number four, I think, are just so important, but they're not talked about enough. Both of them are being talked about more. Number three is sleep. Good quality, regular sleep. I've addressed that on other programs. We will address it again. Number four is stress. So that's going to be our focus today. By the way, numbers 5 through 8, 5 is supplements, 6 is water, 7 is taking care of your spine, very important because most people need to take care of their spine better, and that includes chiropractic care, ongoing chiropractic care. And then number 8 is low-level laser. So that's a little sidebar. Low-level laser, specific lasers at specific low powers are beneficial to the brain. So we're going to deal with number 4. I'm going to give you a disclaimer. Just remember that do not make any changes to your life, to your health, your health and wellness ideas and programs. Don't just all of a sudden exercise if you haven't done so in a long time without checking with your doctor first. Check with your doctor first. Don't start taking supplements without checking with your doctor, and don't make other significant lifestyle changes without checking with your doctor first. This is very important to keep your doctor on board, especially if you're on medications. Medications may need to be changed, altered, tweaked. If you start improving your diet or taking some supplements or getting regular exercise, improving your sleep, whatever it is, make sure you check with your doctor, please. And we are not forming any doctor-patient relationship with this program or any other program. So I'm going to come down to the stress section of the brain health continuum that I talk about. And I've given a variety of programs in the past, and there's more upcoming, and I will be having guests on the YouTube channel and the podcast to do deeper dives, so stay tuned for those. Here's a definition that I came up with stress a long time ago, over 20 years ago. Stress is a self-induced, intangible fabrication of negativity. So break that down. Self-induced, we are creating it itself with our own thoughts. Intangible, stress isn't something that you can weigh or hand to somebody or pick up or whatever. It's all it is these invisible, weightless thoughts. Fabrication, oftentimes, now there are circumstances that are very, very much intense, full of pressure, require our concentration and focus, require different emotions. I'm not talking about that. But we tend to fabricate these chronic stress situations over time. And negativity. Many people say that with all of our 50,000 thoughts per day that we have, something like that, 70% of them are negative. Now, why are they negative? Why would we be wired that way to be so negative? Because if you think about it, for millennia before the current 4 or 5 generations, we had to be living in fear just for survival purposes. So we didn't know if overnight we're going to get attacked by wolves and saber-toothed tigers or whatever. Or tomorrow a tribe is going to come over and steal our stuff. Or the bad weather's rolling in, we need shelter. Or the winter's coming and we need to make sure we get enough food to go through the winter. Okay, so everything during the day was, do we have enough of this? Are we protected from that? Is that going to be harmful over here? And so forth. That's burned into our DNA from centuries of life on planet Earth. Well, now, most of those worries are gone. For many of us, are just not there. So we don't have to keep coming from this fear frame of mind any longer because, again, a lot of us, not all of us around the world, and that's another conversation for another day, is most of us hearing my voice right now, we have shelter, we have a little bit of money, we have food, we have protection, we have clean water. We have these necessities kind of there for us. So as I talk about this and as the other experts and talents that I'm going to mention to you talk about stress is, we're not saying to be completely stoic in your presentation every moment of every day, no matter what the situation. We're human beings. We have a lot of emotions. It's appropriate to have emotions and so forth. But the idea here is you can think about the emotional reactions that you have to a set of circumstances that's presented to you at any moment in time. I like to talk about some daily things that many of us face. As an example, a car cuts you off. So a car cuts you off or behaves in a certain way that's uncaring, maybe even dangerous and whatever. So the car cuts you off. You can decide how you want to respond to that. And you can think, well, I'm just going to smile that off. The person might be having a bad day. They might be in a rush. They might have just had some really bad news. They're late for an appointment. Who knows what it is, right? You can just let it go like that. Smile it off. Or you can choose, that's the key thing, choose to respond in kind. And you might have certain gestures. You might pick certain types of words that really inflame the situation, whatever it is, right? The key with that small, simple example is it's a choice. You can choose how you're going to emotionally react to a little situation like that. For many of us, and I'm holding my hands up as in me too, we can exercise how we want to react with our emotions and so forth with little situations like that. So a car cuts you off, you can just smile it off. You can think of listening to me today and tomorrow a car cuts you off, and then you can think, I'm going to smile right now because Dr. Fuller said, why not? You can choose to do that. So you might have a little giggle to yourself. Somebody might be in the car with you and you share the story and there you go, right? Well, isn't that a much more pleasant way of responding to that situation as opposed to you getting fueled up and triggered or whatever from a very simple situation that really doesn't matter? Okay. Another thing is no one or no thing can stress you out without your own consent, okay? So again, a person reacts in a certain way. Somebody says something about you. Somebody posts something about you that's negative or not true or whatever, right? Events happen that don't fit with your values or whatever it is, right? That doesn't have to stress you out. You can ask the question, do I want to feel stressed about that situation? And well, that's another gift that I have to share with you if you haven't heard this from me before or somebody else. You can start to ask better questions. Well, that's a Tony Robbins gift, is a situation comes your way and you're like, how do I want to best react to this? Is it worth my time and energy and focus to lean into that situation and be intense about it or have this negative reaction or spend time on it or focus on it or tell other people what happened and so forth? You might decide, no, it's not. Okay, move along, whatever that situation is. Okay, we'll be talking about questions in a moment. I like what Tony Robbins said about this too recently. He makes a suggestion of when you could feel stress, you can use a reframe. You can use what is called softeners. So I like to soften things up. Instead of the word stress, and by the way, I don't like the word stress. The word stress itself is kind of stressful, don't you think? It's just so ubiquitous. It's used so much. I have stress in my life. Today is stressful. My life is stressful. I'm in a stressful period of life and so forth, right? Well, let's reframe that. Let's change that. Can we call it pressures and challenges? So in our life, we're always going to have pressures and challenges coming our way. Now, if you just park on that for a moment and think of the events and circumstances and things that are said to you that come your way as pressures and challenges, you'll start to probably think about it a little bit differently than thinking this person stressed me out or this event is stressful. Think about it as, okay, I'm feeling these pressures and challenges coming my way. What's the best way that I can handle this and come out better on the other side? So I just rifled 3 or 4 questions at you, which is just changing your approach in dealing with that particular pressure or challenge that came your way, so you can start to come up with better and different methods of taking care of that. Okay. So 3 takeaways from the things that we're talking about here today. One is taking something from Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. The man, one of several who had survived the Holocaust and ended up giving the rest of us gifts for the rest of their life, so they ended up using it as a tool to become a better human being and help others, right? One freedom that can never be taken away from anyone around the world, no matter how terrible the circumstances, the terrible country or place they might live in, the oppressive regime they might live under, whatever the circumstance might be, is the freedom to control your own thoughts. Your freedom to control your own thoughts. And we're going to explore that in just a minute. Some will say guard the gateway. Guard the gateway into your mind. Earl Nightingale, one of my first mentors, taught us you can guard that gateway. You can change the information that's going into your mind, which will then change how you feel about things, and then you probably will come out the other side with better reactions, better solutions, and so forth. 5% of what's going on in our brain, 5% of our behaviors and so forth are like conscious thought, where 95% is unconscious. It's those old patterns that are just generating who we are and our emotions and feelings and how we react and so forth, right? 5% being conscious, 95% being unconscious. And as I talked about earlier, some say 70% of our thoughts are fear-based. So if we can just understand that and say, okay, so a lot of what I do is driven by the 95%. 5% is conscious. Let me start to change that a little bit. Let me take hold of that 5%. Make sure that 5% is clean, clear, crisp, conscious, useful, improved upon, focused on, changed, whatever you want to do to improve that 5%. And over time, you can, if you want to, if you care to, you can begin to chip away at that other 95% of those old patterns and behaviors that were burned in when we were younger for a lot of reasons, right? And again, my hand is raised. I know that goes on in my brain, right? So I'm becoming acutely aware, and just talking with all of you today right now is fortifying in my brain. Do this better, Dr. Fuller. Do this better, Scott Fuller. You can take control of that 5%, get better at it, every day a little bit better at taking control of that, so you're not just driven by those old patterns. Some of them might be quite good. I know I have in myself great patterns of the way that I act and move and react and help and so forth. I have great ones that I developed in childhood just as protection mechanisms and so forth. So I'm going to keep those. But other negative, fear-based, I am not worthy, I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, those people are better, not me, I'm concerned about what those people think about me and whatever. Those 95% old patterns, old spinning records that I'm doing, I want to change those. I want to make them better, make them quieter, or when they do come up, I want to be more aware of them so I can deal with them better. And remember, quick ways of changing your state, your mental, emotional, and spiritual state at any time, whether it be very, very quick and short term, or something that you want to do immediately, or something long term, is help others. Just go help people, be helpful somewhere, okay? It's not for recognition purposes, that's not it, but it's for your own generation of serotonin. It's to change your brain chemistry. I'm helping this person, I'm doing something good for planet Earth, I'm doing something good for animals, whatever it might be, whatever your themes are that you can work on. Serve others, serve a purpose that is greater than yourself. Always try to serve that. It could be religion, service to God, or what your belief system. It could be the community. It could be your family. It could be your business, whatever it is, right? And inspire. You all can inspire others by just tiny things, little things, in service, in contribution to others. You can do that. And by inspiring others, you're inspiring yourself. There's one great book. I don't think I've mentioned it on this program yet. A massage therapist friend of mine introduced me late in 2023. She said, she runs into my office. She says, Dr. Fuller, you've got to read this book. She had never been this excited about something. And she actually had a copy of the book for me. The name of the book is The Rocking Chair Prophet. The Rocking Chair Prophet. The author is Matthew Kelly. And it's just an inspiring book. It's a fiction book, but there's so many life lesson gems in there. I just can't tell you enough. It's just a great book to read. I couldn't put it down when she gave it to me. And it's an easy read, meaning it's not that long, but it's not an easy read because the gems are so good. You probably will go back and just reread them like I did. Oh my goodness, that's so good. Oh wow, that one's really good over here too. So that's just a little reference I wanted to give you. Okay, so I think I have 9 things I want to run through here as we go through the program. I call them stress-busting tactics. And on here is a list of things that you can work on, many of which you might already be doing. Even if one of them tickles your fancy and you just want to say, I like that. That's one thing that I want to do and work on. I like that. That's what I'm going to get out of the program. Here's a list. Number 1 is impeccable self-talk. Impeccable self-talk. So one of the things that we run into is we talk ourselves down. I use that as an example like I've done to myself a billion times in my life. You're not worthy. You're not enough. You don't know enough. You're not good looking enough. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough skill or talent or these people are better over here. Those men are better than you are. Whatever it might be, right? Talking myself down. And I'm like, wait a minute. Here's one way you can break that, by the way. Wait a minute. Is that true? Now, notice I interjected a question in there, right? This is another one from lots of people will teach you this. Tony Robbins, of course. Is that true? It might be true, what you're just said about yourself or something or whatever. It could be, oh, well, yeah, it's true. Okay, so if it is true, can I make that a little bit better? You just answered another question. So the reason I'm mentioning these question things right now is it can break your state. It can break your emotions. It can break the pattern, at least for a moment, so you can come back to your conscious thought and say, whoa, I'm running an old pattern again. How can I get better at this? And then boom, you get into it. Impeccable self-talk. If you say, oh, I'm not worthy. Wait a minute. Is that true? Oh, well, I'm a human being. Somebody else has done this before. I've seen other people do it. That person ran a 4-minute mile. Why can't I run a 4-minute mile? I'm a good runner. That person over here did that project in 3 weeks, and it was a great project. I can do a project in 3 weeks as a great project. Well, wait a minute. Somebody just called that person a bad name and yelled at them and talked them down, and the person didn't respond in kind. The person said, I understand, I hear you, I'll get better at that, or whatever the response might be. You're like, wow, that was inspiring. I can do that for myself too. You see, there's just endless examples of being able to break your emotional state and patterns that you're running by just being conscious of it. Maybe that question that you asked to stop you in your tracks is that true? Is that the best thing that I can do? Is that the best I can do? And you might come to the conclusion, no way, I'm better than that. Well, how can I handle my child not listening to me? How can I handle this confrontation that's going to be upcoming with my spouse? And oh gosh, here we go. We're going to butt heads again because we always do over this subject of whatever it is. Can I do better? Can I be better when we're going to have that discussion tonight? Well, yeah, okay. How can I be better about that? And then boom, you come into answers because you have a supercomputer. You own a supercomputer free and clear. And the supercomputer is so good, if you ask it a question and it doesn't even have a lot of data to draw from, it'll make something up for you, okay? If you ask it a question that's constructive, that's going to say, How can I show up better for this situation? Back to the spouse thing. I'm going to have a chat with my spouse on some issue or whatever. Can I show up better? Yes. How can I show up better? Then you come up with a list of 3 or 4 things. Okay? Maybe I'm going to start off by just listening. Can I be a better listener? Yes. How am I going to listen better? Sit back, be quiet. Don't try to wait until there's a break so I can say the next thing and fill in that gap. Just sit back and listen. Can I be a better listener? Okay? Well, that's going to settle you down. That's going to settle that person down. It's going to settle the conversation down a little bit better. Maybe. I don't know, but that could be something to try. Impeccable self-talk. Next, number 2, better questions. Well, we've already been visiting that, right? Is as pressures and challenges come into your life, you can start to ask better questions. You might think, oh my goodness, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. This is going to be trouble for a long period of time. Question, is that true? Another question, can I look at this differently? Another question that I like for myself. When I am sitting back, Scott Fuller, when I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, I think I'm going to have a bad day today. Or I think I'm going to have a tough hour or an afternoon or whatever, right? I'm kind of kidding, but not really. So I'm deciding that today is going to be icky. All right. What helps me, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, is looking at other inspirations throughout life. People that I've known, people that are real life people in my life that are mentors, historical figures, whatever. Viktor Frankl I mentioned earlier. People that have been through way worse, and people who have probably experienced things in their lives that is so much worse than you've ever had, that you can draw on that power, that energy, that example, that they got through that and they're a beautiful person. I think I can handle this thing coming at me, right? So asking better questions. There's some examples of doing it. On a small aspect of the car cutting you off, to bigger things like I've got a situation with my spouse or my children or something at work, or I need to face this, so we've got some money things or whatever it is. Think about that. Asking better questions. Okay. Number 3, daily brain food. Daily brain food. Well, what do we mean about that? Is can you put good stuff in? Now, for 35 years in my own life, I've been aware that when you keep on dumping good stuff in, eventually it's going to lead to good things coming out, right? And so I've continued to do that. I'm not perfect at it. I try to get better every day. So I'm choosing what I listen to. I'm choosing what I read. I'm choosing who I spend time with and so forth. That's what I'm getting at within reason, and you can do that. Now, number 4 is wrapped into this as well. Number 4 is turn off the poison. Turn off the poison. So Andrew Weil has mentioned this. Peter Diamandis has mentioned this. Tony Robbins has mentioned this. Mel Robbins has mentioned this. Lots of other people have mentioned turn off the poison. What does that mean? Turn off the news. Turn off the news. Now, I and anyone else that's making that suggestion, they're not saying don't be ignorant to what's happening around the world. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not what they're saying. But to have the news on all day long, and a lot of news is a whole lot of negativity, right? Because negativity sells. The daily brain food, number 3, start to pump in and choose what's going to go in. Maybe you start off your day with something inspiring, loving, interesting, happy, whatever genre you want to fall into. Brief meditation, more about that later. And then maybe you need to turn on the news and get a little bit of what's going on around the world. But then for the rest of the day, as best you can continue putting good things in. So that could be simply if you do drive a car and you spend some time in the car, maybe what you're listening to is not just news. Maybe you're listening to a creative audiobook. Maybe you're listening to a podcast like this one. Maybe you're listening to another person's interesting podcast, a tape, or whatever it might be, right? So start to put in better brain food, and then that will decrease the poison that's going in. Okay. Number 5. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. again. Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that has crushed it. The first time that I heard that was Wayne Dyer. And Wayne Dyer said it to Oprah Winfrey. And you can find the recording if you ever need to look it up. But when he's on the show with her, he says it once. And she looked at him, or, had a response like, wow, that was wonderful. She said, oh my goodness, can you say that again? And he said it again like I did. It's just so impactful, the power of forgiveness. I have worked a lot on this, and I bet many of you listening to me right now have worked even harder than I on forgiveness for whatever has happened in your life. Circumstances, people, the way you were brought up and grown up in your family, and so forth. Some have said forgiveness is really true forgiveness now, not window dressing. I've done some window dressing forgiveness in the past. I forgive you, or that's fine, and I'm good with that, or whatever it is. No, we're talking the real deep forgiveness where you go back and if you need assistance in doing this, and you need a professional, go get a professional. If you need a psychologist, psychiatrist, counselor, or social worker, or whatever it is, if you need assistance, please go get assistance, okay? Forgiveness is getting your power back. When it's done, not only getting your power back, I'm going to say this, forgiveness is your own freedom. When you truly forgive an event, someone, something, whatever it is, and you really feel that you've done that, it's freeing yourself. So working on forgiveness, and it's something I've worked on for years, as other really talented people have taught me how to do this, and it's been a worthy road to go down. So again, if you need some work there, wow. Number 6, gratitude. Gratitude. Diane Cirencioni. You look her up, find her books, find her recordings, and so forth. Diane Cirencioni said this once: I'm grateful for life's tough teachers. I'm grateful for life's tough teachers. Wow, we could spend days on that one, right? That's such a powerful thing that she said once, and she's had tough teachers, and I've had tough teachers, and you've had tough teachers, and sometimes the ones that really just got under our rib cage, right? And really stuck with us. Sometimes it just built us up, right? It just sharpened the stone. So, I can think of examples right now. I'm not at liberty to share them with you at this point, but boy, yeah, doing that, working on those two, working on the forgiveness. If you were to stop listening to me now and just work a little bit more on the forgiveness and a little bit more on the gratitude, I believe good things will happen for you, and you can let me know how that works out. Okay. Now, the other thing about gratitude is I'm going to back up a little bit. So, as I mentioned earlier, one of my first mentors in my life. So, I'm back in graduate school, chiropractic college. This is in the 80s, and I meet a doctor and a chiropractor, and he was teaching courses on to change us from student bookworms, important at the time, right, to doctors with good bedside manners, doctors that can communicate with patients, doctors that can look people eye to eye, doctors that have better listening skills, because that's a lot of gathering information from people. So he was helping us with that transition. And so Dr. Whitney, that's his name, Dr. Whitney shared with us a lot of inspirational information in there. And one of the things that he played for us back here, again, late 80s, is Earl Nightingale's recordings. So that was the first, let's say, personal development person that I had ever listened to. And I still listen to Earl Nightingale's stuff now. He's since passed away decades ago. And one thing that I have on my bathroom mirror, and I've had it there mostly for the past 30 plus years, 3 words: attitude, gratitude, and expectant. Expectant. Attitude, gratitude, expectant. Attitude. Have a happy, cheerful, expectant attitude all day long, no matter what happens. Attitude. You can choose your attitude, work on it. Happy, cheerful, expectant. Second is gratitude. Be grateful for everything in your life. little things and big things. Start with little things if you need to. I'm grateful for hot water. Okay, other people have talked about this as well, not just Earl Nightingale. This is everybody. I mean, Oprah Winfrey says, I have a gratitude journal, and she's probably had gratitude people on I know she has, who are authors on this, speakers on this, talents on this. So you can be grateful for lots of things in your life. And if you're hearing my voice right now, very likely you're in a safe place on the planet, and you have little things you can be grateful for. I have food. I have shelter. I love my house. I love my clothes, bed, friends, family, kids, spouse, whatever it is. Then you look outside, birds, trees, if you have that around your place where you are. If you're in a big city, maybe not so much. I live in a, if you're in the United States as an example, or another country that you like and are fond of, I live in a rich, free country where I have freedoms and I have riches and so forth, right? So you can be grateful for little things. I'm grateful for the bird, the car, the roadway, my coworkers, whatever it is. And then you can be more grateful for bigger things, better things. It could be mental, emotional, spiritual. If you're a God believer, I'm grateful for God, that God is in my life, that I choose to have God in my life, as an example. Or if you're not a God believer, you can change that around. And if you have more of a universe kind of perspective, look at this vast, beautiful universe that's here for me, and I'm part of it, and I'm happy to be part of it, and I'm going to be a better part of it by working on myself today, and I'm grateful for that, to be aware of it, and so on. You can see that this stuff just flows out of me, and so you can build that up. You can work on that, and that can be one way of improving your reactions by setting a foundation every day. Attitude, gratitude, and the last one, expectant, in a moment. By setting a foundation to have a better day is going through mental, emotional, spiritual exercises. Even for 1 minute in the morning, you do that, right? Many of you might pray. So you pray for a minute in the morning. You if you're not a pray person, then you run through these words that I'm talking about: attitude, gratitude, and expectant. So the last one is expectant. I expect the best. I expect the best out of today. I expect the best from myself. I expect to be 1% better today as a husband, a father, a woman, a wife, a mother, a child, a parent. I want to be 1% better as a soul in this universe. I want to be 1% better as a coworker, 1% better as a boss, as a wealth builder, 1% better to my fellow neighbor, better neighbor, community member, whatever it is, you see? So you can just kind of work with it. I expect the best from myself today. Now, some of that might sound so big, it's too much for you. But you can tone it down and bring it into, I expect to be 1% better today as a fill in the blank, as a coworker, as a parent, as a child, as a whatever it is, right? Driver, you know. We'll be talking about that because I'm just listening to another one on car accidents. That'll be another podcast. But anyway, I'm going to be 1% better. I'm going to be 1% more attentive as a driver today, okay? So attitude, gratitude, expectant. 3 little words that you can begin to exercise your brain in the morning, lay out a better foundation. It's going to help handle pressures and challenges, sometimes it's called stress, pressures and challenges that come your way, okay? Number 7, perspective. And I mentioned this to you before. Perspective helps me. When I think I might have a bad day, then I will come back to perspective as one of my tools. So I mentioned Viktor Frankl. I didn't have to go through the Holocaust. He survived. There were some survivors. He's not the only one, but other people have written books and become beautiful people out of one of the most intense, amazing, and horrific things that a human could ever go through, and then live a beautiful life after that. I think of Louis Zamperini, the book Unbroken, the movie Unbroken. I did not read the book, but I did see the movie. If you haven't seen the movie Unbroken, I recommend it. And if you do get the movie, be sure, if you can, to watch the movie clip at the end with the real-life Louis Zamperini before he passed away. He was able to see the movie before he passed away. And it's like 20 minutes or 30 minutes at the end of the movie, and it shows him. Now, if you don't know the story, he was in World War II. He was shot down over the Pacific. He was 47 days, if I remember, in a life raft, and then picked up by the Japanese and then put into a prisoner of war camp for the rest of the war. 1.5 2 years, something like 2.5 years. I can't remember the time frame. So the movie is all about that whole journey, right? So after that, he went back to Japan twice to meet with his prisoner of war camp soldiers and offer full forgiveness to them twice. And there's a clip or two, a clip of him visiting Japan when he was in the room meeting with his captors. I mean, bring tissues. Nelson Mandela, Captain Gerald Coffey. Captain Gerald Coffey was shot down over Vietnam. And he was 6 years, maybe close to 7 years, in the Hanoi Hilton, as it was called, prisoner of war camp, mostly solitary confinement. Again, became a beautiful human for the rest of his life. Nelson Mandela, most of you know his story, right? The list goes on. Martin Luther King, just these people that endured just terrible events and pressures, and they just stayed on course and were beautiful people. Number 8. So we have perspective that helps me. Number 8 is mentors. You can always find mentors. Okay, I have lots of mentors in my life, and I like to think that I help mentoring other people by just passing along the messages and the gifts that I learn and that work for me. So number 8 is mentors. I told you about my first one, Dr. John Whitney, that introduced me into the personal development realm, starting off with Earl Nightingale, and that spun into Zig Ziglar and then Tony Robbins, and then just the list is endless now of the good brain food that I keep putting into myself. So I mentioned Earl Nightingale, and I wanted to, if you're unfamiliar with Earl Nightingale, go to YouTube and put this in, specifically this. So you're going to type in YouTube, The Strangest Secret. That's one of his recordings, by the way. The Strangest Secret, Earl Nightingale. But you want to add this. 1950, as in the year 1950, original full, meaning the original recording and the full recording. You'll come up with hopefully the search still works. You'll come up with a recording that's about 40 minutes in length. And the reason I want you to get that one is it's introduced by his wife. And if you listen to that one, you'll be different. It's really good. Remember that's 1950, so that's 74 years ago that he's talking about the things we're talking about right now. Very powerful clip if you do listen to it. And he was the reason behind Nightingale.com. So if you're looking for other authors and downloads and audiobooks and whatever else in the personal development spectrum, you can go to Nightingale.com, and there's a variety of information there, lots of stuff. HayHouse.com is another one that will be a collection of this. So I'm going to give you, I have one more tactic in a moment. I'm going to give you a few more resources, and then we'll wrap up, okay? So Tony Robbins I've mentioned, and for some of you that are not really familiar with Tony Robbins' work, you might think of Tony Robbins as, oh, he's going to show you how to make $1 billion and take over the earth and run businesses and stuff like that. Well, sure, he's going to help you in those areas. I think of Tony Robbins more of a human behavior specialist. He dedicates his life in showing people human emotions, human behaviors, human patterns, how to break them, how to change them. If you don't like where you are in your life, in your self-worth and so forth, hand-raised, right? Work with his material. He's got a lot of material. Much of it is free. Much of it you can go pay for. I've done a bunch of his programs. I took Personal Power 1 back in the 90s, I think it was. Personal Power 2, The Ultimate Edge. Don't miss this one, by the way. Don't miss this one. The Ultimate Relationship. The Ultimate Relationship. That's a Tony Robbins program. He has his wife Sage on there. I thought it was powerful. I've listened to it at least 3 times. I've shown it to other people. Other people have listened to it. They're like, this is amazing. Why not have a thought in mind, an idea in mind, a goal in mind, something to chase for that you want to have a great relationship in your life? I'm talking about a cohabitation relationship, man-woman relationship, whatever you want to call it. But intimate relationship, there's the word. Intimate relationship, you want to have a successful one that can handle pressures and challenges that come your way, one that gets building and stronger throughout life instead of deteriorating. If that's possible, you can do that. They show you the strategies of not only when you meet somebody and you fall in love and so forth, and there's a lot of power and electricity in that in the beginning, but sometimes it fades. So they're going to show you techniques and tactics to keep that power and electricity up and alive. Again, that doesn't mean it's going to be perfect every day. That's not what I'm saying, and that's not what they say. But they're talking about strategies and techniques that you can utilize to keep your relationship one for the ages, right? And that's something I've worked on a ton, and I'm looking forward to that in my life. So I'm building myself in that direction to attract that woman and have that type of relationship. So Tony Robbins is more of the why guy. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? How can we do these things better? Just go to his website, TonyRobbins.com. He's got that movie, I Am Not Your Guru, that I've mentioned many times on this. It's a pretty good movie if you want to check that out. And by the way, he partnered up with Chloe Madanis and formed this group called Robbins Madanis Training. And it's more dealing with the mental, emotional, and psychological aspects of what we're discussing here. So RMT, if you put Robbins Madanis Training into Google, you get there. rmtcenter.com. rmtcenter.com. And here's number 9, which I already mentioned. Sometimes we need to build up slowly with our tactics, techniques, exercises, and abilities. So when we have little ones that we can conquer, little examples of problems that come our way, challenges and pressures that come our way, like the car cutting you off, and that was number 9 here on my list. Car cutting you off. If you can handle that and smile it off, and practice that. Oh, I almost caught myself reacting in that way with creative words and certain gestures, and you're like, nah, it's not worth it. I'm going to smile that off. I'm going to send love to that person. Could you do that? By the way, there's a question. If somebody cuts you off and reacts rudely, could you send that person love? No, I couldn't do that, Fuller. What are you talking about? Well, some of you are saying, I could. So maybe not, but just maybe. So you deal with that, or you're a little late, or the child forgot the homework, or you stepped in goop, or whatever it is, things that kind of really don't matter on the grand scheme of things. If you can practice your techniques and tactics of breaking that pattern, breaking the state, smiling it off, coming out of it quickly, again, not saying don't feel your emotions. I'm not saying that. But you can change how long you're going to stay in that emotion, right? Okay? So that's the thing to work on is number 9. Let me buzz through a couple more strategies for you. Okay. So what we're trying to do here is move the needle. I, and maybe some of you listening, have a certain method of responding to pressures and challenges. What we're trying to do here is move the needle with the little techniques and tactics and strategies and other programs that you probably will listen to after this. Move the needle. Turn off the poison. That's a reminder. Turn off the news after you got your dose of whatever's going on. Move on to daily brain food. Daily brain food. How do you get there? You ask better questions. Our computer is always asking questions, always asking questions. You might not have even known that until I mentioned it to you. I didn't know that until a few decades ago when Tony Robbins taught me that. You're always asking questions. Change the question, right? Of course, daily physical exercise will build up brain chemistry, the runner's high, the workout high, whatever it is. It doesn't matter what you do if you have the ability, and remember to check with your doctor. Daily physical exercise changes mood like no other. I've talked about that before. So check into some of the recordings, books, authors, tapes, whatever you need to get into. Journaling, of course, has been talked about a lot. You can practice other mindful techniques like yoga, Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, mindfulness, all of these tactics. Breathing techniques, easy to find. Go look. Dr. Andrew Weil has the 4-7-8 method of deep breathing. Wim Hof, everybody's heard of Wim Hof now. Look at that. Surround yourself with people that are willing to work on these tactics and techniques with you. Get a partner. Get your partner involved. If the children are a certain age, and even young kids, you can start to teach them these things. You really can. You you can bring it to age appropriateness and just talk about these things once they're of a certain age. Try to reduce your exposure to negative people if you can. Love your family, choose your friends, right? Try to schedule in. Everybody's got a schedule. We've all got a schedule. I've got a schedule. Everybody's got a schedule, right? Try to schedule in meditation, exercise, deep breathing, programs, whatever it is. There's a little book called The 7-Day Mental Diet. It's still available. I got some copies. Tiny, tiny little book. You can read it in 10 minutes. The 7-Day Mental Diet by Emmett Fox. It's an old book, but it's based in a good foundation. So, and this is such a good word that Tony Robbins says. And this is what I was trying to think of earlier. What we're trying to do with our emotions is, again, experience the rainbow of emotions that we have as humans. However, if we tend to lean more towards the negative stuff and the fearful stuff and the tearing ourselves down stuff, we're trying to shorten the refractory period of your emotions. Shorten the refractory period, right? Tony Robbins calls it the 90-second rule in his life, where he'll say, I'm giving it 90 seconds, and then I'm going to break my pattern, break my state, and go back to it. Meaning, let's say being angry or upset about something, he's using a 90-second rule. Get the kids involved, as I talked about, okay? And then buzzing through some other resources. I mentioned Wayne Dyer, drwaynedyer.com. You can see the movie that he did called The Shift. The Shift. In 2009, I think you can find it right on YouTube. Living the Wisdom of the Tao, one of his many books. Dr. Joe Dispenza, just in the meditation realm for a moment, drjoedispenza.com, and he's got great books, great meditations, online courses, live courses. Angel Wild Spontaneous Happiness is a great book. Emily Fletcher, Tara Brock, cmbm.org. Many of you are familiar with apps that you have on your phone now for 2-minute meditations, 1-minute meditations, 5-minute, 30-minute, an hour, whatever you can choose. You can choose the type. It can be quiet. It can be music and not music. It can be guided, not guided, voices, no voices. I mean, you can get whatever you want now, right, to be helpful. One of the most powerful books that I read on chronic stress and human emotions and the long-term stuff and its effect on the human body. The Brain's Way of Healing by Norman Doidge. Look into that. Just really powerful book on taking chronic diseases and getting them changed up with different programs. Own Yourself by Kelly Brogan. Own Yourself. Great book. Read that a couple years ago. Amazing. If you want to talk about how we are addicted to media and social media and negativity and so forth, The Hacking of the American Mind by Robert Lustig. The Hacking of the American Mind. Okay. Another one I really loved, I've only watched this movie 7 times, only 7 times, Finding Joe the Movie. FindingJoeTheMovie.com. I love the book Think and Grow Rich, not because of the last word rich, but the first word, think. It's a book by Napoleon Hill. What is it, close to 100 years old now? Think and Grow Rich. The organization with a lot of other books on there, naphill.org. Napoleon Hill, naphill.org. Jim Rohn, Jeff Olson are other authors. Simon Sinek, great stuff. Hope to have Simon Sinek on the podcast in the future. Les Brown, another one. Check out his stuff. Lissa Rankin wrote Mind Over Medicine, great book. Dr. Kim Duramo, Mind Body Toolkit, another one. Brene Brown, lots of you know Brene Brown, lots of you know Eckhart Tolle. I mentioned HayHouse.com, Louise Hay. healyourlife.com. Thich Nhat Hanh. TrishWynot.com. Trish Wynot, a holistic counselor. Her book is, now her last name is Wynot, okay? Her book title is Why Me? Why Now? Why Not? Great book. The Aladdin Factor by Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, The Aladdin Factor. Ziglar I mentioned. Stephen Covey, people know this, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And that, hopefully, is a plethora of tactics, and maybe you just got one that can help you. This is the one that really needs to be talked about. I think it needs to be discussed when it comes to brain health and Alzheimer's prevention, because if we alter our brain chemistry in a bad way chronically by having all of our chronic stress chemicals taking over and not focusing enough on the brain chemicals that build us up, like serotonin, like oxytocin, we need to move that needle, right? We need to shift that. And that was the program that I had for you today. Hopefully you got something out of it. Happy to do more. Let us know, communicate. Let us know if anything here resonates. And if you've got some ideas for some great guests, and I just listed a whole ton of them, we'll be reaching out, doing the best we can. I'm Dr. Scott Fuller. Thank you. Thank you for listening to A Fuller Life podcast. For a video of this podcast, go to my YouTube channel, Dr. Scott Fuller, which has a lot of additional content.